Welcome to Conversate, a podcast where we engage in conversation. And on this episode, I, Pastor Kevin, am sitting down with Shane Kleiman, our AV extraordinaire here at Saints Peter and Paul. But he does more than media booth. He has a life, and he's going to share a little bit about it, especially as it pertains to creation. And so in this conversation, we're going to talk about how, as Christians, do we relate to the creation? What sort of out of bounds and what sort of inbounds, and how do we navigate that? We'll attend to that and a little bit more. And so that's what this conversation is about. As always, we hope as you hear something, you take it and start another spiritual conversation of your own. And as always, we hope you enjoy it. That was a nice ring.
It helps having two metal bottles.
It does. I was about to ask you if you've ever dropped your water canteen and it made just like a obnoxiously loud, sound.
We can confirm that from 2 minutes ago.
Exactly. That's what inspired the question. But
I mean, as you look at it, you can kind of tell.
Yeah, mine's got some marks, some scrapes. I didn't always have a metal one. Used to have a... well, I don't know if there's a specific name, just like the thick plastic ones, right?
Kind of an Nalgene or something.
Yeah, exactly. Nalgene. I guess that was like a brand.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of Kleenex. But anyways, I used to have that thick plastic kind. And there was a couple, I think twice, I left the gym and I was throwing my bag in my car and stuff. But like to get my bag off my shoulders, I would put my water bottle onto the top of my car. And then I would take my gym bag off and get, into my car and kick it on. And sure enough, I would drive away. And then I'd be like, wow, I'm very thirsty.
Yeah.
And I'd look over and there was not my water bottle. And so then I went back to retrieve it. And both times, just shattered fragments. Isn't that crazy?
Really? Because I have put my Nalgene through so much. And you can tell.
Yeah.
And it's years later.
Yeah.
Good.
Allegedly, I think indestructible. I don't know if they use that language, but basically is the
They
idea.
more or less claim that, yeah.
But I've seen them explode on a gym court.
Okay.
I had a classmate in college. He was really mad at intramurals, and he threw it across the gym court, and it shattered. And he was not expecting that. He was just trying to get it off the court. And then and I didn't see what happened, so I don't know if it blew up on impact, which would be like the same as my buddy, or I don't know. It'd be hard to run over a full Nalgene. You know what I mean? Like to go over the top of it, you feel like you'd bounce off.
Two rounded surfaces, you'd think they'd run, bounce off each other.
In any case, here we are. And if you haven't picked up by now, this is not Pastor Aaron on the other side of me. If it was, you would hear a story about a time when he destroyed a Nalgene bottle, I think. He's got stories about breaking stuff. Maybe you recognized, if you're watching, that he looks different and that we're not on the brown couch. And if you're listening, that he sounds different. I have with me today Shane Kleiman. And Shane, I was about to give you, I was trying to think of titles to just list after your name, but I think it'd be better, Shane, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I would be really more interested in hearing how you would describe me.
I was going to say you are AV extraordinaire was going to be the first title. Truly, though, if you're part of our worshiping community, Shane, he does oversee that sound, the media booth. So you've maybe seen Shane's name attached to, if there was ever time looking for volunteers, or if you've worked the booth, you very likely know Shane, because he probably talked to you. How long have you been running the booth?
Really, ever since I graduated from tech. That was one of the first things that Pastor Aaron kind of tied me into as I became a member here. So, 2017.
Okay. 9 years.
Yep.
This spring. That's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, and so you went to Michigan Tech but stayed in the area since that time.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was blessed to basically my final semester. There was a job posting from a local company that I had already been interested in, and basically set aside the time to rework my cover letter and resume, and had a great help from one of my references also. There's a good story with that, and was offered the job. So upon graduation, basically moved across town and started work a couple weeks later.
Very cool. And so that was 2017, you said?
Yep.
And but your relationship with this church then even precedes that.
Very much so.
Because I know that you also spent some time. How long were you in the student house?
I was in the house because I was a graduate student, for 4.5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
So you jumped in, what, your junior year?
Junior year. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and then had those additional couple years on the back end.
Yep.
And graduate student in which department?
Forestry department.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
What do you have a specific doctorate then?
I don't have a doctorate. I basically got 2 undergrad degrees, and then they had what I've always called professional master's degrees, which aren't research-based. They're just coursework-based.
Yep.
And I figured out how to, I wouldn't say manipulate, but basically work the system that it only took me 2 extra years to get 2 master's degrees.
Very nice. So what are those master degrees in,
So-
technically speaking?
Yeah. Those master's degrees are in forestry and then GIS, which stands for Geographic Information Science.
Interesting. And can you give me like a 3-sentence?
Mapping, spatial analyst, that type of stuff.
Okay,
would
like
be
topography
Yep,
even?
yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
So really any type of spatial analysis. Obviously through the forestry department it was more environmental science based and whatnot, but I actually have a friend who graduated with his Chem Eng degree but has worked for DTE doing mainly GIS stuff, as for an electrical company basically.
Yeah. What's DTE?
Detroit Edison, basically the power company from down in the Detroit area.
Got it. I was asking for all the people who didn't know, including me. Well, very cool. So forestry and geographic information science?
Yes.
Okay, got it. And and so you graduated and you got a job right away. It sounds like for an organization you had already had a relationship with.
A little bit.
Okay, a little bit with. And what kind of work have you been doing for them?
So I work for Green Timber Consulting Foresters, based about 20 minutes south of town here. Technically their address is Pelkey. But as consulting foresters, we work for a variety of clients. But what is always easiest to explain is, say, a private landowner who owns forest land here in the western UP, and we work to help them manage their land. Very often in the form of writing management plans for our various clients or conducting timber harvests on their property. But we also, probably at this point, Green Timber, as far as bulk work goes, or like the thing we spend the most doing, is known as inventory. So basically going out and measuring a certain subset of the trees on a given property.
Gotcha. Okay, just to get a sense of how many trees are growing.
Yep.
What the proportion of the forest is in particular tree demographics. Okay. All right. Well, you're leading right into one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on the show, Shane, which is we've been working through this sermon series, this Epiphany season, beginning of the year, called The Fall, where we've been tracing Genesis 3 and the different separation that happens. That the fall is referencing the fall of humankind into sin. So this happens in Genesis 3 is the story if you want to read it, but there's particular directions. We see the separation play out. So between humanity and God, between human to human, between humanity and their purpose. And then this last week we talked about also between humanity and creation, so the natural world,
For sure.
if you will. And so, so you've got some experience working in that natural world.
I do. Yeah.
One of the things that came up while I was doing some kind of study and research on to prepare for preaching and then for teaching Bible class was basically the complexity of the environment. Okay, and so I don't know if this actually translates like in your line of work when you're talking about if you were to give someone a plan. I imagine that has to do with attending to maybe some of those complexities.
For sure. Or maybe those complexities of even just the variety of forest here in the Upper Peninsula. The management styles that you would conduct on different types of forests here, it varies drastically in that regard.
Yeah, like what kind of different management styles are you talking about?
So, especially if you're thinking about, say, timber harvesting and whatnot, there are forest types that, I guess, reproduce best if you clear cut them.
Okay.
And then there's other forests that the species composition would dictate more of a thinning to allow trees to grow into better crop trees.
Interesting.
There's other forest types where it's like we're going to clear the majority of the trees, but we're going to leave what are called seed trees that basically, once you open up the canopy for them, they're even more prone to producing seed that then reestablishes and, grows up the next cohort of forest over the next 40, 50, 100 years.
Yeah, okay, interesting. So yeah, 3 examples right there. The clear cut, the thinning, the
seed
trees, which is like exposure more so for like sunlight for like individual trees to then branch out essentially.
Branch out and really throw seed.
And what's if I'm tracking with you, you're saying that, these are different styles of forest management, but you choose them potentially based on the kinds of trees you have in your forest. Is that right?
For sure. I mean, as long as it's not a super disturbed site, that it's a more natural site, the tree species that you have on a given site are indicative of probably the best tree species to continue propagating on that site based on soil condition or soil type, soil condition, aspect, the moisture content of the soil in that regard. So yeah, it's sometimes sad, or you feel like you're, kind of bringing your clients down when they're like, oh, I want to grow, say, sugar maple, sugar maple production. And it's like, sorry, but your ground, your property would not support sugar maples no matter how hard you tried.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So another way to say it maybe would be like what a birch tree wants is different than perhaps what a ironwood wants.
Yes.
What a sugar maple wants.
Yep.
Okay. So this is interesting because it starts to connect into then. I was talking about the complexity of the creation, the environment, which that's there. We're seeing even in that example, okay, there's some complexity. It's not just like one broad stroke works for all the trees.
For sure.
Right? So you've got complexity, but then you also have this dynamic between kind of our human involvement in our interaction with nature. And it sounds like for y'all's work, you're sort of starting with nature and saying, all right, let's understand how it works, and then let's use that to guide our action. Okay, which is very different than, or just to use your example with the sugar maples, right? If someone comes in and says, no, I want sugar maples. I don't care what my forest currently is. Enough with the soil talk. I'm going to have sugar maples. Okay, that sounds like that would go maybe be antithetical to you guys' approach.
For sure. I mean, in that extreme situation, it would honestly be a matter of not possible type of thing. If it's truly a soil that can't support, good sugar maple, it's like, well, as much as you want that, it just isn't possible type of thing. So, yeah, there is definitely that aspect of what's realistic in terms of ecology in that regard, but also what's financially viable as well. It's like there's, and I think that does play a part of a lot of ecosystem environmental management is the financial aspect. It's like, what will it cost, and are you willing to pay it to, incorporate or, do this type of management and whatnot. A thought that I had, Kevin, just based on something you had said, is I've always seen forest management as hopefully a way of like replicating natural disaster or natural disturbance, I should say, not disaster, but just disturbance. If you think about forests over time, before large-scale human involvement and whatnot, there was already natural disturbances happening on the landscape. We haven't gotten into this example yet, but there's forest types that explicitly need fire to regenerate. You get rid of fire, you get rid of this forest type, forest type's ability to regenerate.
Interesting.
And whatnot. Other forests actually likes blowdown, or, where trees get blown over by the wind. So, a concept that has really stuck with me is, okay, honestly, it's not good to suppress a forest and like try to stop natural disturbance and not manage it.
Okay, yeah.
It's like it almost like it over mature would be a good word for it.
Sure.
Or you think about if you have a vegetable garden, you just leave your vegetables in there and don't harvest them.
Yeah.
They're going to get a lot of species over mature and rot in that regard. So you can kind of think about a forest in that regard. So, it was really interesting going through school, just thinking about the concept of trying to, as reasonable as possible, replicate natural disturbance in your management styles.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I would not have thought of that. So, and this actually helps us get into spaces where we're thinking about what does it mean to relate to the natural world? Like what's sort of inbounds and what's sort of out of bounds from a Christian perspective.
Very much so.
So, in this case, right, let's imagine, for instance, a person who says, like, rocks and trees are on the same level as humans, okay? Like, if we're treating them as creatures, it's like, well, we can't cut them down.
Sure.
We can't disturb them. How would you like it if you were sawed in half, And it's like, well, no, I wouldn't like that. You're totally right. But as Christians, we don't worship the creation, nor do we treat rocks and trees and plants as if they are on the same level as humanity, because we know that God created humanity as the crown of its creation. So there's a hierarchy for the Christian. Now, the reason it makes me think of that is this idea of like, I don't want to disturb the forest. You can imagine someone who treated the creation on that high of a level, they would think it maybe automatically a bad thing to hurt the forest by cutting it down, by disturbing it.
Sure.
But what's curious is that this is actually part of the rhythm, if you will, of God's creation that's useful for it in its growth. Striking.
Very much so. And I think, and I've had this discussion even with a couple of friends who live out west, and not to pick on those people from California and whatnot, but forest fires, especially in California, it really plays into what you were talking about. There's so many people, I mean, around the world, but especially, California gets all the headlines, who don't think a single tree should be cut. But then they also don't think that there should be any wildfires. Like every single spark of wildfire is bad, not natural.
Sure.
Where it's like, again, getting back to that example, no, those forests out there, it's natural and healthy for them to have low intensity wildfires go through them. But when you suppress wildfires, you allow the fuel to build up, and then that's when you get the catastrophic fires that occur.
No kidding.
So it's kind of that twofold aspect as far as like, if you, again, and I kind of have been circling back to that natural disturbance aspect, but it's like when you suppress even the natural disturbance aspect of it, then that's not natural either. And
so this moves me into a little bit of a different thought in terms of our relation to creation, which is sort of this idea of humans. Like my first example was humans in no way above creation, totally on the same plane, let's say it's trees. But then you can have a different thought that says, no, humans definitely are above creation. So much so that they're really the masters of creation. Now, I think this is a mindset that like, it's really only in the last, I don't know how many decades, like recent history, that I think we can even, as humanity, slip heavily into this thinking. Well, correct me.
Or even have had that awareness.
Because of like technology.
And just, scientific research on environmental aspects.
Exactly. So like for ancient people, I think, what would be more the case is if they encountered, let's say, a tornado or a forest fire or a flood. It wasn't just a tornado or a forest fire or a flood. It was the gods. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like the level of nature over humanity.
Sure.
Like, even instances in nature would be seen as transcendent, if you will.
Oh, yeah. Because there's no way for a human to control those.
Exactly. But now we live in a time where there's still that element.
Oh, yeah.
There's still that element, and maybe we'll come back to that as we think of creation and God's connection. But we do live in a time when we do have far more capacity to alter things. And it seems to me that, or at least it's not just to me, in my study as well, one thing that the biblical narrative gives us, so for the Christian, thinking about relationship to creation, one thing that the Bible doesn't give us is a sort of sense of total dominance over creation, which is to say, if we start slipping into that mentality, we're likely actually to cause problems for the wider creation, but then also for ourselves.
Sure.
And it sounds like, so I'm imagining a person who's like, yeah, like their supreme goal is, we need to stop nature from going crazy. So let's suppress, right, these disturbances. Let's try and make it as cozy as possible.
Yeah.
And if I'm hearing you right, you're saying like that would actually be problematic.
Well, I think, especially in the example, that forest fire example out in California, you see that anytime, I don't want to say this blanketly, but I'm going to, anytime that you see a catastrophic fire out there where it's like everything just burnt to a crisp, it's like, that probably is the result of fire suppression over years, allowing fuels to build up and then burn catastrophically. So while we're circling around on this, I'm not a forest wildfire expert.
Yeah.
My thought has always been, in those situations, it's not a question of if it's going to burn, it's a question of when it's going to burn. And if you just let the fuels build up and don't manage it in that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to your point, it's like we do have more control over some aspects of it, but there's other aspects that it's like, yeah, it's way beyond human
capacity. And maybe even control is a bit of a misnomer. Maybe it's like we have influence. It's like we can influence things.
Yep.
But at some point, our influence, like even if we're doing it in this direction and it works for a while, might totally get consumed by nature's response. Do you know, like in the West, they do control controlled burns?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So and this is kind of
and honestly,
go ahead.
Even here in the Midwest, like there's forest types, northern Minnesota, even here in the Upper Peninsula, that actually are dependent on fire to a certain degree.
Okay.
So,
like as a process to help regenerate?
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, so this kind of gets us into the third position. So we talked about humans being like basically subservient to creation in my first example. Second one was like masters of creation. The middle road, which the Bible basically demonstrates for us or gives us, this is kind of our field to work in as Christians, is we're not subservient to creation. God put us in his creation to work and keep it, to have dominion. The question is, okay, like spelling that out in the specifics, that's where it gets muddy.
Very much so.
But it seems, or what I would share with folks listening is, so like God said, he invites us to co-labor with him in this process of caring for creation, which doesn't mean, totally avoiding it or being subservient to it, but it also means not having mastery over it. Okay, so what does it mean? Well, it means there's some place in the middle of those extremes. And this is like going back to the controlled burn example. I'm thinking of the West Coast, super populous, right? So that's got to be one of the difficult things in that puzzle of how you manage
for sure
the controlled burns, because it's like, well, where are we going to do them? How often are we going to do them? At what point are they starting to encroach on people's homes and such? So this becomes maybe the complicated piece.
Oh, it's very complicated. Management in that aspect is very complicated. And I would say just, in everyday life, obviously we've been kind of riffing on the forestry aspect, but, there's so many discussions out there that can kind of lead down infinite, black holes as far as like, well, how do I live sustainably and whatnot? And especially as Americans who are so blessed with all the opportunities that we are given, it's like, is this irresponsible with God's creation, or did he give me this opportunity to go out and do, I don't know, or type of, explore, just travel, for an example. It's like, you know, that wasn't necessary, but you get to go out and travel for enjoyment and that type of thing. So.
And when you say that, like, I'm imagining the balance there has to do something with like what limited resources from like a fossil fuel standpoint. Yeah.
Yep.
Or you could say contribution to the environment in terms of what I'm pumping out of my exhaust thing. And yes, you're hitting totally on it, which is it's a difficult question to answer.
Very much so.
And the Bible is not going to give us like, okay, here's the full, report exactly how you got to live in each of these categories.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, Shane, if you don't mind me asking, are there any particular areas for you in your life? It sounds like this is something that you've thought about.
Very much so. I guess just as an example, I play recreationally in both the power sports arena and the silent sports arena. Actually, this past weekend, I was just with my family snowmobiling, and it was a great time getting to explore God's creation in that regard. Get to see so many places in a winter setting that you wouldn't be able to see if you didn't have a snowmobile. I also love cross-country skiing and mountain biking and the exercise that provides. And there's definitely, not to pick on either of these groups too much, but there is some hopefully lighthearted animosity in regards to some of the negative effects of both communities and whatnot.
Yeah.
But for me, on both ends, snowmobiling as one example, cross-country and skiing as the other, I thoroughly enjoy both of them for their different, what they, just the opportunity to go out and see God's nature doing both of those.
Yeah, so it sounds like, and I didn't even really finish my question, but you're already attending to it, which was going to be, like, what are there any ways in your personal life that you've either wrestled with how to steward well God's creation, or things that you have kind of like, no, this is important to me, and this is one way I'm going to do it, and the way that I would summarize what you just said would be basically appreciation of God's creation is
Very
one
much
way.
so.
And that absolutely actually becomes a pretty strong piece in the biblical narrative. Interestingly, in Romans 1, when it talks about the problem of sin, which you can talk about in lots of directions, one of the ways it talks about in Romans 1 is a lack of gratitude towards the Creator is the problem of sin.
That verse, and I meant to look up the exact verse before we met, but that verse where it talks more so the cynical aspect of humans becoming so corrupt that they worship the creation.
Yep.
That is a verse that runs through my mind as I interact with some of these decisions or just seeing the world, from my environmental perspective, as far as both liking to recreate in it, but also working in the forestry realm and whatnot. And it is sad to interact with people who are so gung-ho about the value of creation that you can just, again, it feels like Paul wrote that verse for 21st century America, or like what I've experienced in my interactions with people.
Yeah, which is to say, like, this idolatry is what we're talking about. This is not something that's like, oh, that's just what the old archaic people did. Like, idolatry is something that's just a consistent part of the human experience. The things which we look to and make idols after shift and move. And when sometimes when people think of idols, they think of Baal and Molech and these like archaic names. Well, that's just the name of the thing that they idolize then, but idolizing things still consists and persists today. And you're right, one of the ways it can be easy to do in our day and age, especially on this topic, is to idolize creation itself. And that's found in Romans 1 as well. Yeah, same area, talking about that problem of sin. I wanted to ask you something, Shane. I'm trying to remember what it was. Well, I forgot what it was, so I'm just going to let that just float on by. Here, how about this? So, recreation. Let me just stick on that note for one second and ask you, in your experiences, because you've done those different sporting, motor and silent sport, but even just hiking and exploring, big part of Shane Kleiman's life. Have there been experiences, things you've done that did sort of like bring to your awareness not just creation's beauty, but God's beauty? Like, have you had anything like kind of spiritual in your experience of your delight in creation?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's everywhere. Everything as far as the grandeur of getting to travel, the various places I've gotten to travel, honestly, both for work or just personally in vacations and whatnot, and to get to go and experience the variety of God's creation. You know, we live here in the Upper Peninsula, but I've gotten to travel really across the country, whether it's Alaska, the desert Southwest, down south in Mississippi, up in the Northeast, and just crazy to think about just here in the United States.
Yes.
How varied the environment is.
Incredible,
And
right?
it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's like almost every conceivable type. Maybe not Arctic, but up in Alaska, I suppose.
Glaciers.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so this kind of takes us back to, at one point we were talking about natural phenomenons and ancient people saying, "Oh man, it's not just a tornado; it's the gods and they're angry at us. It's the tornado gods." And obviously as Christians we would say, "Well, no, there aren't tornado gods, there aren't mountain gods." But I think it's in Romans as well that says, so there's this problem of sin and sort of what happens when we turn away from the Creator, but there's also this beauty that's built into the creation and kind of serves as a signpost back to God.
Oh, yeah.
And this seems to be in some way connected to that path forward. Like, it's a complex thing to try and figure out. Certainly on a global scale. Sounds like even for you on a professional scale, but right down to the personal.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm putting in my body, this is complex. So how do we walk forward? Well, it seems like one of the ways the Bible gives us to walk forward is to, if we kind of have that in our headspace or as a compass for us, that the creation isn't the thing to worship and adore, nor am I the thing to worship and adore by taking whatever I want from creation, but that there's this God who's blessed me with this creation. And so however I'm engaging with it, if I can direct that thanksgiving back to God, that seems to be at least one helpful move forward.
Very much so. I think a couple of things that stand out to me is that initial directive to Adam even though we don't have the word in our ESV Bible, I think it translates very well to steward.
Yeah.
When God placed Adam in the garden, the concept is to steward the garden. So how are we stewarding our natural resources in whatever context that is? But I would also say very much enjoyment, and I think you got on this a little bit in your sermon yesterday, where it was like, okay, are you joyful over God's creation? Are you joyfully enjoying God's creation, acknowledging Him as the provider of, say, the beauty of it, or how you're going to use it, whether it's food or timber or water resources? Are you acknowledging Him as the ultimate provider of this, of this resource that you shouldn't take for granted?
I'll dig that. If that came through, I have to pay homage to my father. He, I think, instilled that in us in just the way that he himself interacted with lots of things within creation, within this world, but kind of chalking it back up in thanksgiving to God. But down in Branson, Missouri is where they're retiring to.
Okay.
And they've got a little boat dock there, and he's got a little plank, people put their names and stuff on these little wooden planks in front of their boat slips, but he's got his, and it's got benders on there. But then he threw, it's a verse, I'll misquote it if I even try, but it's in one of the Timothys, which says something about God providing all of this for our enjoyment, which is such an interesting thing. And what a unique picture of God too, For some, maybe for many of us, we think, yeah, of course, especially living in an area where there's so much enjoyment of God's creation.
Yep.
But I think for a lot of people, that wouldn't be like the first way they would conceive of God, as this guy who's basically like, hey, I made this great playground.
Yep.
Like, go and enjoy it. Yeah.
I mean, that's what the majority of creation, if you break it down by day, kind of the majority of it was things created, outside of humans. Humans appear on day 6 but there was all the stuff that was created before humans appeared on day 6.
Yeah.
And we get to go out and enjoy basically everything that was created prior to us.
That's so interesting. I've never really thought about I've always thought about creation of humanity like hierarchically,
Yeah.
but not from like a standpoint of like, look, here's all the stuff.
For sure.
Like, go out,
Yep.
enjoy it. Yeah. Well, as we wrap up this conversation, Shane, I know you have invested a lot of time in our local area, enjoying God's playground here for us. Any highlights, any like, hey, if you've never done this, go check this out. What would you say to the person who's like also loves creation that way
Sure.
and is looking for something to go and explore? What would you
Trying to give away all my secrets?
Yes. Or should I mean, it's the secret's out now, but you can say, well, just come talk to me. That's a totally fine answer.
That's fine as well. As far as the greater Western UP, I'll kind of keep it generic, but I personally just love the greater Huron Mountains area. It's very remote. Even though there's a lot of active timber management that goes on in that area, it feels undisturbed by humans or like it has that, if it's being disturbed, it's because it's getting used and managed for timber harvesting and just, again, product production. So and there's a lot of amazing waterfalls, outlooks in general out there.
And can you get up to that? I mean, so Huron Mountains, these are the ones I see when I drive on Paradise Road, right? You basically just circle around the bay and shoot up north?
Yep. So a good portion of them are on private property, but there are some of the mountains that are on publicly accessible land. And again, I'd even just speak about the forest out there. I just love the wild, remote feel of it. So, and that, while again people think of the Huron Mountains as what you can see looking across Paradise, really that entire area north of Highway 41, as you go from Lance to Marquette, that is all very remote area by UP standards. So, very cool spot to roam around in. I guess here in the Keweenaw, it's so well known, the Copper Harbor, like trails and whatnot.
Yeah.
But some of the locations that they've now gotten those trails built to, that is such a unique aspect. And I've had the pleasure of going and biking a few different areas across the country, and by no means are well versed in, other trail systems and, other areas and whatnot, but I think what's being developed up in Copper Harbor is a very unique thing that shouldn't be taken for granted as well. So,
well, I appreciate you sharing, Shane, and especially as those two things are two things I have yet to explore.
There you go.
So I got two more to knock off on my list, and Shane's secret's out. So he didn't give coordinates in this sharing, but if you are very interested, just come talk to Shane. I'm sure he'd be happy to help you at least get started on your adventures in this beautiful playground we got.
Very much so.
Well, thanks for coming on, man, and sharing your life with us a little bit and your work and helping lead us into a thoughtful and joyful engagement of creation.
For sure.
Blessings on your week, man.
Yeah, you too, Kevin.